I found my husband's secret list ranking women by attractiveness. My name wasn't on it. My best friend's was number 1. I stared at the spreadsheet glowing on his laptop screen, my coffee growing cold in my hands. 5 years of marriage, and this is what Ryan had been doing in those late nights, catching up on work. The list was meticulous: par names, ratings, notes about their personalities, even potential compatibility scores. 32 women from our social circle, workplace, and neighborhood. X-men except me, and there at the top. Megan, pair 9/8, perfect match intellectually and physically. Only obstacle, loyalty to Sarah, my best friend since college. The woman who stood beside me at my wedding. I closed the laptop and placed it exactly as I'd found it. My hands were surprisingly steady as I texted Megan. Leave tomorrow, need to talk. That night, I watched Ryan sleep, wondering if he dreamed of her. When he reached for me in his sleep, I didn't pull away. Instead, I studied his face, searching for signs of the stranger who'd created that list. Megan arrived at the Clesmenti looking flawless as always. You look terrible, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. What's wrong? I pushed my phone across the table, the shran of Ryan's list displayed. On her face drained of color. Sarah, I swear I had no idea. 5 years, Megan, 5 years. I've been with him, and apparently he's been calculating his escape plan. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I would never save it, I cut her off. The question isn't what you did, it's what I am going to do now. That evening, I prepared Ryan's favorite dinner. Candles, wine, his favorite music playing softly. He looked surprised when he walked in. What's the occasion? He asked, kissing my cheek. Just felt like celebrating us, I replied, pouring him another glass of wine. By the third glass, he was relaxed enough for me to ask casually, do you ever think about other paths your life could have taken? He looked at me curiously. What do you mean other choices? Other people? I twirled my wine. If you could start over, would you choose differently? Something flickered in his eyes. Part guilt, perhaps? Why would you ask that? Just wondering if I am still your first choice, I said softly. His hesitation lasted only seconds, but it was enough. 3 days later, I invited Megan and Ryan to dinner separately, telling neither that the other was coming. When the doorbell rang, I was already gone, leaving only an envelope on the dining table. Inside was a printed copy of the list, and a note. Since you've already ranked your options, I thought I'd save you both some time. The house is yours for the weekend. By Monday, I'll have moved out. Don't try to contact me, parent. I've made my own list of possibilities and neither of you are on it. My phone buzzed with messages from both of them. As I checked into the hotel, I silenced it and ordered room service. The waiter who delivered my meal was attractive with kind eyes and no wedding ring. Rough day, he asked, noticing my tear-stained face. Rough week, I admitted, but I think things are looking up, he smiled. Sometimes the worst endings lead to the best beginnings. As he left, I noticed he'd written something on my receipt. His name and number with a simple message. When you are ready to talk, I am a great listener. I smiled for the first time in days. Ryan's list had broken my heart, but maybe it had also set me free. What I didn't know then was that Ryan and Megan weren't the only ones with secrets, and mine was about to change everything. I didn't call the waiter Pertine Alex according to his note. Not right away. Instead, I spent the weekend in a blur of hotel room service, mindless donker, and intermittent crying. My phone continued to buzz with notifications until I finally turned it off completely by Sunday night. I pulled myself together enough to check my messages. 57 texts from Ryan, ranging from confused to angry to pleading. 23 from Megan, all variations of desperate apologies and claims of innocence, and 1 email from my boss confirming my request for a 2-week leave of absence. I'd sent it Friday morning before leaving the house, knowing I'd need time to rebuild my life. Monday morning I drove to our house. Parent's house now, I supposed, Parent knowing Ryan would be at work. I used my key to enter quietly, half expecting to find evidence that Megan had stayed over instead. The house was immaculate, the dinner table still set for 3, my envelope untouched. They hadn't come. I stood in the kitchen confused. This wasn't the scenario I'd imagined. Where was the betrayal? The passionate reunion between star-crossed lovers finally free to be together. I checked Ryan's laptop again. This reject was still there, unchanged. I scrolled through it more carefully this time, reading his notes on each woman. Jessica, parent 8/2. Great sense of humor, but talks too much about her cats. Amber, parent 7/9, smart but intimidating. Probably wouldn't work long-term. Megan, parent 9/8, perfect match intellectually and physically. Only obstacle, loyalty to Sarah. I kept scrolling, looking for something I might have missed. At the very bottom of this reject, there was a hidden tab labeled Project UITES. I clicked on it, my heart stopped. It wasn't a ranking of potential affairs or replacements. It was research for a novel. Ryan had been working secretly on a book part, a psychological thriller about a man who becomes obsessed with his wife's best friend. This reject was character development for the women in his protagonist's life. I felt sick. I jumped to the worst conclusion possible without even giving him a chance to explain. As I sat there stunned by my own mistake, I heard the front door open. Ryan stood in the doorway looking exhausted and unshaven. You came back, he said quietly. I came to get some clothes. I lied, quickly closing the laptop. I didn't think you'd be home. I called in sick. He stepped closer. Sarah, what the hell happened? I came home Friday and found that fit that list. I've been trying to reach you all weekend. Don't pretend you don't know what it is, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. It's research for my book, he said, running a hand through his hair. I've been working on it for months. I was going to surprise you when it was finished. A book? I repeated flatly. Yes, a book, a thriller. The main character is nothing like me, or he's obsessed and manipulative. I needed to understand how someone like that would think, and Megan at the top of the list. He sighed. She's the motto for the best friend character. I needed someone who would be believable as a temptation. Someone my readers would understand as a threat to the marriage. It made sense. Too much sense. I felt the ground shifting beneath me. Why didn't you tell me you were writing? Because every time I've tried something creative in the past, I've given up. Remember the guitar, the cooking classes. I wanted to prove to myself I could finish something before I told you. I remembered the dinner invitation I'd set up, the trap I'd laid for them both. Did Megan come here Friday night? I asked. Number. I called her after I found your note, but she was as confused as I was. Sarah, why would you think I'd want to be with Megan? The shame was overwhelming. Because she's perfect, I whispered. And I am not even on your list. Ryan's expression softened. He took my hands in his. You are not on the list because you are not a character in a book. You are my wife, the real person I choose every day. I wanted to believe him, but something still didn't add up. Show me the manuscript, I said. His face fell. I can't. Why not? Because fine. He hesitated. Because there isn't one, not yet. I've been doing research, making notes, but I haven't written a single chapter. I pulled my hands away. So here's no book. There will be. I am planning to start the actual writing next month after I organize all my notes. It sounded like an excuse, a convenient cover story for the list. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I need more time, I said. I'll be in touch about about getting the rest of my things. As I walked to the door, Ryan called after me. Sarah, please, I love you, only you. I paused but didn't turn around. I wish I could believe that. Back at the hotel, I finally called Alex, the waiter. Not because I was interested romantically, but because I needed someone to talk to who wasn't involved in the mess of my life. We met in the hotel bar that evening. He was even more attractive in regular clothes and dark jeans and a simple blue button-down that matched his eyes. So he said after I'd given him the abbreviated version of my situation, "You think your husband might be telling the truth about the book?" I sipped my wine. I don't know what to think anymore. It sounds plausible, but also convenient. Have you talked to your friend Megan number? I'm not ready for that conversation yet. Alex nodded thoughtfully. What would convince you that he's telling the truth? Evidence of the book, I guess. Use outlined something beyond just that Sredget. Then that's what you need to look for, he said simply. I studied him across the table. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me, he smiled. Let's just say I recognize the look of someone whose world has been turned upside down. I've been there. We talked for hours about his failed engagement 3 years ago, about my career in marketing, about books and movies and everything except my current situation. For a few hours, I felt normal again. When we said goodnight in the lobby, he didn't try to kiss me or suggest meeting again. He simply said, whatever the truth is, Sarah, you deserve it. Don't settle for less. The next morning, I called my sister Claire. She'd been texting me worried messages since Saturday. Oh, thank God, she said when she heard my voice. Are you okay? Ryan's been calling me frantically. I am fine, just processing some things. I hesitated. Claire, did you know Ryan was writing a book? A book? She sounded genuinely surprised. No, he never mentioned anything like that to me. What about Megan? Has she ever said anything that made you think she might have feelings for Ryan? Megan? No way. She's been seeing that professor for months now. Reading, she tell you. I nearly dropped the phone. What professor? Some guy from the university. James or Jason or something. She's been pretty serious about him from what I gathered. This was news to me. Megan hadn't mentioned dating anyone recently. Why would she keep that secret? Unless I thanked Claire and hung up, my mind racing. I needed to talk to Megan. We met at a different clustery this time, one where we weren't regulars. She looked terrible, parrot pale and drawn with dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice small. Claire tells me you've been dating someone, I said without preamble. She looked startled. Yes, Jacob. He's a literature professor. How long? About 4 months. And you didn't tell me? Because Hybe, she looked down at her hands. Because he's married? The pieces started falling into place. Is he leaving his wife for you? He says he is. They're separated, but Feng Shi trailed off. But you were not sure you believe him, I finished for her. She nodded miserably. I wanted to tell you, but I was ashamed. You and Ryan have this perfect marriage, and I am the other woman and a messy affair. I almost laughed at the irony. My marriage is far from perfect, Megan. But you and Ryan are solid. You always have been. Did you know he's writing a book? She looked confused. A book? No, he never mentioned that. A thriller about a man who becomes obsessed with his wife's best friend. Understanding dawned on her face. The list. Yes, he claims it's character research. Do you believe him? I sighed. I want to. But if he's been working on this book for months, why hasn't he mentioned it to anyone? Not to me, not to you, not even to Claire. Megan was quiet for a moment. Quite, here is one person who would know for sure. Who? Jacob? He runs the creative writing program at the university. If Ryan's serious about writing, he might have reached out to him for guidance. It was a long shot, but worth trying. Megan called Jacob and put him on speakerphone. Jacob, this is awkward, but do you know a Ryan Mitchell? He might have contacted you about writing a thriller. There was a pause on the other end. Ryan Mitchell? Yes, he's in my advanced novel writing workshop. Talented guy working on a psychological thriller, if I remember correctly. My world tilted again. Ryan had been telling the truth. He was writing a book. Is everything okay? Jacob asked, when neither of us responded. Yes, fine, Megan said quickly. Pikes, Jacob, I'll call you later. After she hung up, we sat in stunned silence. I need to talk to Ryan, I finally said. Sarah, wait. Megan reached across the table. T, here's something else you should know. What is it? I asked, suddenly wary of Megan's serious expression. She took a deep breath. Jacob isn't just Ryan's writing instructor. They're friends. They have been for months. So Ryan knows about me and Jacob. He's known all along. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He never said anything to me because I begged him not to. I made him promise to keep my secret until I figured things out with Jacob. The implications hit me all at once. Ryan had been keeping Megan's affair secret from me, while simultaneously using her as inspiration for the temptress character in his book. No wonder he'd put her at the top of his list. Parent, she was literally living the role he was writing about. I need to go, I said, standing abruptly. Sarah, please. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I was scared and ashamed. It's not about you, Megan, not anymore. I drove straight to our house, my thoughts churning. When I pulled into the driveway, Ryan's car was there. It was only 2 p.m. Parent, he should have been at work. I found him in his home office, surrounded by papers and sticky notes. He looked up in surprise when I walked in. You've been taking a writing workshop? I said. He nodded slowly. Yes, for the past 3 months, and you know about Megan and Jacob? Another nod. She asked me not to tell you so. You've been keeping secrets from me? Ham's secrets. I was respecting Megan's privacy, and I wanted the book to be a surprise. I looked around the office, really seeing it for the first time. The walls were covered with notes and character sketches, plot outlines, timelines. The evidence of his creative work was everywhere. Why didn't I see any of this before? I asked. Because I put it all away when you were home. I worked on it late at night, or when you were out with friends. I picked up a character sketch from his desk. It was for the protagonist's wife, Parent, a marketing executive named Claire, who suspected her husband was having an affair with her best friend. You based a character on me? I said quietly, loosely. In the book, Claire's right about her suspicions. Her husband and best friend are having an affair, but in real life, they're not. Number in real life, I love my wife and have no interest in her best friend. I sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. I don't understand why you kept all this from me. The writing Megan's affair. Why all the secrecy? Ryan sighed deeply. The writing, but I was afraid of failing. Of starting something and not finishing it like I always do. I wanted to prove to myself I could do it before I told you and Megan. That wasn't my secret to tell. She was struggling, Sarah. She knew how much you disapprove of affairs. It was true. My father had cheated on my mother when I was a teenager, destroying our family. Megan knew how deeply that had affected me. So instead, you let me believe you were having an affair with her. I had no idea that's what you thought until I found your note. By then you were gone. We sat in silence for a long moment. I made a terrible mistake, I finally admitted. I jumped to the worst conclusion without talking to you. And I should have been more open with you, Ryan said. About everything. Where do we go from here? Ryan stood up and came around the desk. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his. We start over with complete honesty. No more secrets. No more secrets, I agreed. He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time in days I felt like I could breathe again. Are you nervous? I asked Ryan as we pulled up to the bookstore. Terrified, he admitted with a laugh. Today was the launch of his novel The Replacement, the story that had nearly ended our marriage before it was even written. After our reconciliation, Ryan had thrown himself into finishing the manuscript with Jacob's guidance and my support. He'd completed it in record time and found a publisher who loved it. The book had already received glowing advanced reviews, with critics praising its complex exploration of trust, betrayal, and redemption. She and Jacob had gone public with their relationship after his divorce was finalized. It had been awkward at first, rebuilding our friendship after everything that had happened, but we'd managed to find our way back to solid ground. The place is packed, she said, hugging us both. They had to bring out extra chairs. I couldn't have done this without you, he whispered to me. Yes, you could have, I replied, but I am glad you didn't have to. As Ryan took his place at the podium and began reading from his novel, I watched the audience lean forward, captivated by his words. Pride swelled in my chest. It was from Alex, the waiter who had become a friend over the past months. Did he dedicate the book to you? He'd be a fool not to. I smiled and texted back. Page 3, first line of the acknowledgements. I'd already memorized the words. To Sarah, who taught me that the truth, however difficult, is always worth fighting for. You are my first choice every day. When Ryan finished reading, the applause was thunderous. As he signed books and chatted with readers, I stood to the side, content to watch him shine. Megan sidled up next to me. Happy ending after all, she said. For all of us, I agreed. You know what's funny? If you hadn't found that subject, Ryan might never have finished the book. I laughed, and if I hadn't jumped to conclusions, we might not have learned how important honesty really is. Sometimes the worst misunderstandings lead to the best revelations, she said later that night. As Ryan and I celebrated with champagne in our living room, surrounded by stacks of his newly published novel, he pulled out a small wrapped package. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with my name embossed on the cover. Your turn, he said simply. My turn to write your story, the one you've been talking about since college but never started. I ran my fingers over the smooth leather. I wouldn't know where to begin. Ryan smiled. How about with a woman who finds her husband's secret list? I laughed. That story's been told. Then tell a different one. Tell your story, Sarah. I'll be here to support you, just like you supported me. As I opened the journal to its first blank page, I realized that the real story wasn't about lists or misunderstandings or even betrayal. It was about two imperfect people learning to trust each other with their dreams, their fears, and their truths, and that was a story worth telling.